Oh, another hard day's work finally done. Oh. What's going on, man? How are you today? Nice, nice. Did you catch the big game last night? No. Oh, I thought you were a football fan. I guess that's fair too, especially if you're a little tired after a long day. What about Star Trek? You were looking forward to that new episode that just came out. Did you catch that? You didn't watch that either? All right. Well, what did you put on? You were kind of staying up late past bedtime last night, and I figured we could go to bed a little bit early, but you stayed up. So what did you watch? What? I've never even heard of that show. What are you talking about? Season 17? Are, is this a joke? What do you mean? What is this show? Oh, of course I haven't heard of it. It's not. I don't even have that app. I've never even heard of that app. And you're telling me there's 17 seasons of the show? Who's watching this? Well, you, I guess. That's kind of the crazy thing too. I've been thinking about a little bit lately. We don't really exactly have a monoculture anymore, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I'm glad we have choice in anything we consume, but I feel like the negative aspect of this is there's not really this water cooler moment kind of discussion that people can have anymore about what everyone's sort of collectively experiencing together. And I think there's something a little bit sad about the fact that that just doesn't exactly happen all that often. Every once in a while it does with a show or a movie that breaks through, which is great that it can still happen, but it's certainly not as frequent. And I feel like as everyone gets into these weird fractured little bubbles and realities, it then sort of leads into this other thing I've been noticing lately, where a lot of companies who are trying to get people back to theaters or subscribe to these services or whatever, they're just shoving nostalgia down our throat to just go, oh, remember how we used to have it? Let's all get back to this together. And yet it's the same regurgitated IP we've seen 1,000 times, which then sort of leads into another thing I've been noticing about creative paralysis, I'll almost call it, and people over consuming nostalgia, not pushing things forward, and then we're just stuck in sort of this, I don't know, infinite loop, I guess. I mean, how would you describe this concept if you've heard of this before? Yeah, exactly. That's a great point. An Ouroboros. That is exactly what we are in right now. A nostalgic Ouroboros that we can't seem to escape from. And that's exactly what I want to talk about on tonight's episode of Deep in the Woods, the nostalgia Ouroboros. And we'll resume right after the break. Welcome back to another episode of Deep in the Woods. Before we begin tonight's discussion, I actually have some sad news to share. Aww. If you watched last week's episode, you saw the host, who gave a wonderful discussion, and he's actually my cousin, if you guys aren't aware. He unfortunately the other day passed away in a very horrific air fryer accident. And the whole community and Channel 3 staff are devastated, along with my family, of course. He definitely left some big, bright pink shoes to fill, which I'm going to try my best to do so. So we're going to push forward, keep doing this show like you would have wanted. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is, and this is our co-host, Dr. Mannequin. And we're both happy today to continue the show in his honor, so keep him in your prayers. Okay, moving forward. As I mentioned beforehand, Ouroboros is this very interesting ancient Egyptian sort of symbol concept, or I believe it first appeared in Tutankhamun's tomb before it was studied past that, where it's this idea of this dragon lizard beast where the head is forever eating its tail. And it's this constant circular infinite loop type of situation. And I feel like culture has really gotten into this point of stagnation where this is the best way to describe it, where we're constantly just regurgitating things. like a disgusting human centipede wrapped around itself and consuming the same stuff over and over and over again. And I wanted to figure out, well, where did this kind of start, right? And I'm sure there's a bajillion reasons, but I sort of wanted to focus, of course, on the more media consumption side of things, but this could apply to other areas too. And I want to take a step back for just a little bit. So, if you think about the advent of social media, it was originally sort of intended as this way to basically bring people together so they could communicate when there was too many barriers to do so, or you wanted to just share a little bit about yourself. So it was actually a very noble, interesting way to bring people together. Unfortunately, though, today it almost has the exact opposite effect, where people are now more fractured than ever. There's echo chambers for all kinds of things, whether it be entertainment or otherwise, and people aren't actually having legitimate, shared, good, meaningful, civil conversations anymore. So I wanted to rewind the clock once again a little bit to go, well, like, what is really going on when it comes to consumption of media? And I think about the fact that water cooler discussion moments, as they used to be called, don't really happen anymore. People are so trapped in their own little bubbles and echo chambers that the collective shared experience of a monoculture really is dying. And yeah, you do, of course, have the breakthrough moments. I feel like some sporting events sort of have that. I know Stranger Things, when that was coming out, for the first number of seasons at least, there was a lot of that water cooler moment discussion. Game of Thrones, right? Like, you're certainly going to have those exceptions. But I would say you're certainly not getting it all across the board anymore. I mean, I remember when Twin Peaks first came out in the early 90s, it was the every week who killed Laura Palmer mystery, and people were always talking about it. And not that everyone watched Twin Peaks per se, but like you kind of knew what that was at a bare minimum. And it's just sad that that monoculture aspect is kind of going away. Granted, the flip side of that, in a positive way, is now people can find anything they want very easily and experience the things that they particularly enjoy, which is cool. But there is still something sad about that collective experience almost going away. And not to say that social media is the blame for everything, but it's just funny how, once again, it sort of started as this thing to bring people together, and now it's almost divided people more than ever, unfortunately. And that's just a very, very, very sad thing to see, because that wasn't, I don't think, the intent to begin with. So, if we're saying now that this monoculture is dying, shared experiences are going away, well, what does that have to do with nostalgia, right? And culture eating itself? Well, now in recent years, there's been kind of this push of, oh, bring people back to the movie theaters, subscribe to these streaming services. Look at this reboot we're doing. There's a Friday the 13th prequel series coming out. There's a reboot of Evil Dead. There's a reboot of, I don't know, Transformers and Ninja Turtles and He-Man, right? All these things that keep getting regurgitated to sort of quote unquote bring people back to have these collective experiences again. And to me, they seem related, right? So people are fractured and they can find their own thing, but yet people kind of want to have a shared experience to some extent, but it's not over something new. It's, oh, let's bring back this franchise and IP for the 84th time, and hopefully that'll get people discussing again. And frankly, most of the time, even if it does work, it'll be for like a week, and then people will move on to the next thing because short attention spans and fads that go viral and things like that. So it's unfortunate though that like this weird breaking down of monoculture has almost resulted in nostalgia overload to some extent. I don't know if I want to say it's a complete one-to-one correlation, but I feel like it's highly related. And it's just getting worse with every new thing that needs to be rebooted, sequeled, whatever, prequeled. And I just get very frustrated about it. Hmm. Yeah, actually, you know what? Yeah, let me go on a tangent here for just a second, because you actually bring up a good point about remakes. So I was reading this interview the other day about a director. I honestly can't remember which movie it was. I would have to look it up. But basically, a director was going to be rebooting a movie coming out, I think, in another year or two. And the director was basically asked, like, "Oh, why do you want to reboot this movie now?" If I was in this person's shoes, my answer would be, hey, I like the original idea, but I want to take it in a very new creative direction to almost retell the story in a very different manner. To me, even though I don't love remakes, that's a good reason to do one, is because you want to have a very unique, different perspective. The answer this dude gave instead was, I just want to modernize it for a new generation so they can appreciate it as much as I did, i.e., a cash grab. And that to me is the worst possible reason for why you would want to reboot something, because it's, once again, the head is eating the tail, regurgitation of garbage we've seen 1,000 times. Regardless if it's good or bad, you're not pushing the culture forward anymore. And so, to give you an example of one of my favorite remakes, the movie Suspiria. The original one by Dario Argento is an unbelievable masterpiece. I don't even like Giallo movies that much, but that movie, I love it. I love the cinematography. It's creepy. The music by Goblin is amazing. Love that movie. So when I heard that they were doing a remake about, I think, a decade ago, I was like, all right, here we go again. That someone's going to be trying to do a cash grab, right? And I am genuinely surprised at how much I love the remake, because it was purposefully made to tell a different story than what the first one was. There are elements that are the same. It's still Suspiria. You feel the DNA of Suspiria. The core elements are kind of there, but it's just a very wildly different take on what the source material was. And I thought, awesome, that is brilliant. I love the fact that this is the direction it took. That to me isn't so much that the the head eating its tail anymore, but it's more, I don't know, the tail is starting to come out of the mouth a little bit, just a tiny bit. It's not perfect, but it's a step in the right direction. And I wish any remakes, reboots, sequels, all that kind of stuff would at least attempt to do something different. I mean, shoot, why not take a garbage movie that everyone hates, rather than, you know what, don't remake something that was good. Take something that was garbage that had a cool idea that you want to now try it like again in a different context to see if it works this time. We don't need remakes of the same crap that was good. Do a remake of the garbage to give it another shot. Maybe that's another way of putting it, to kind of escape from this a little bit. So, if the head is eating the tail over and over and over again, then you might be asking yourself, how do we get out of this situation? We got to do something about it, right? Well, stay tuned after the break, and I'll give you my thoughts on what you can do. We'll be back. All right, we're back. So, before we talk about what sort of this call to action is, if you will, I think what I want to talk about briefly first is the fact that now that we've gone from monoculture leading to fractured realities, leading to nostalgia overload, I think what has happened is we're in this sort of era of creative bankruptcy or creative paralysis, if you will, where because there's almost like there's no middle ground. There's this nostalgia overload on one extreme, and then there's this ultra niche material or content, whatever, on the other. But then in the middle, there's been this void left where the kind of middle budget movies, or instead of AAA games, how about a double A game, right? It's not quite indie, it's not quite AAA, it's somewhere in the middle where you can sort of do something new, give it a shot, spend some amount of money, but not no money either, right? And so there's a little bit of that going on where you have this void, right? But then because people are creatively paralyzed to some extent, people then are over consuming the stuff they've already consumed. And that also then pushes people to never try anything new. And I want to be very clear about this next point. I'm not saying every person who consumes media has to then create media. However, I would highly suggest it. I think there is something very, very fun about trying something that's never been done before. And to be honest, if you're not like a creative person to begin with, then give your shot at like for example, fan fiction. You might not be an avid writer yet, but try fan fiction for something that you're familiar with to get like your foot in the door. Maybe write a Batman Joker fan fiction. That's pretty popular. You could write a Star Trek fan fiction, which, fun fact, if you didn't know, Star Trek basically was the origins of fan fiction. And that's a story I will not go down today because it gets a little weird, but we'll come back to that another day. Or you can try writing a song for the first time, writing a short story, do a podcast. The idea of being creative is so daunting at first, but once you get into it, it becomes one of the most rewarding experiences you can do. Not only because you're trying something you've never done, but you're kind of stepping outside of your comfort zone a little bit. And I'll be honest with you, I have tried creating things many, many, many times and failed hard. But you know what? It taught me a lesson every step of the way of what I wanted to do next. All right, you know what? Let's not bring up that. Okay, yes, that was a failure, and I'm trying to make sure no one sees that ever again. Don't ever mention that one again, please, for the love of God. I know you have blackmail on me, but yeah, I'm not going to bring up that one for a very long time. Maybe one day, we'll see about that one. Maybe I'll release the version of it online. But in the meantime, yes, I have failed numerous times, as you have said, and at first it was a little bit frightening because I was like, ugh, this is cringe, it's garbage, no one's going to like it. And frankly, that was true for a decent amount of it, but it helped me grow. It helped me step out of my bubble of what I knew and what I didn't know. And I've learned all kinds of skills along the way, whether it be video editing or audio editing, script writing, costume design, fake blood or real blood from time to time, and sort of everything in between. And I think it's really, really important for people to just try, be creative, push yourself to do something that has never been done before. And I guarantee you will feel rewarded for doing it. You may not be rewarded monetarily, at least not yet, but you'll be rewarded in the fact that you pushed yourself to try something new. And honestly, depending on how weird it is, people might not understand it at first, and maybe they'll never understand it, and that's okay. This idea of, there used to be this idea of doing art for art's sake, and unfortunately, that's also kind of a dying medium. People just want to create stuff purely to be compensated for it. And to be clear, you should be compensated for art if you're selling it or something like distributing it in some manner. But start out by just making art for art's sake. Do something because you love it, give it a shot, and expect to fail hard numerous times. You might get lucky and succeed on the first try, and if you do, more power to you. But that's not the experience of most people. So that's kind of my takeaway at the end of this is yes, it's okay to consume stuff that you're familiar with. Nostalgia in itself isn't a bad thing. But when we get stuck into this reality of a nostalgia Ouroboros, where we're never escaping, never progressing, nothing new is being created, that's not just when culture dies, it's when life starts dying. And I don't mean to over exaggerate it in the sense of like just a movie or a TV show, but that is how a lot of us experience life is consuming media. And so if we're seeing the same things over and over again, then we as a species don't even start evolving anymore. We're kind of just always stuck in the same old spot and going, remember the good old days. And I'm here to tell you, yes, the good old days were fun, but they're the good old days. Let's move forward as a society, try something new, and take a risk. Be creative, give it a shot. You never know what will come from it. You're probably going to fail, but ultimately, I think, at least for me, I'll speak for myself, I've been infinitely happier as a result of it. So, with all that being said, any parting words for today, man? I couldn't have said it better myself. Until next time on Deep in the Woods, thank you for watching here on Channel 3. Remember, if it ain't Channel 3, it ain't for me. See ya.